Yeah, well, good afternoon and welcome to the meeting of the Wellington Shire Council for this Tuesday the 7th of May 2019. Members of the public gallery should note that the Council records and publishes meetings via YouTube to enhance the accessibility of county meetings to the broader Wellington community. These recordings are also archived and may be published on Council's website for viewing by the public or used for publicity or information purposes. At the appropriate time during the meeting, members of the gallery may address the Council, at which time their image, comments or submissions will be recorded. Members of the public who are not in attendance at the Council meeting but who wish to communicate with the Council via the webcasting chat room should lodge their questions or comments early in the meeting to ensure that their submissions can be dealt with at the end of the meeting. Please could gallery visitors and councillors ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting. And if we could stand for the acknowledgement and the prayer. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gunai people, and pay respects to their elders past and present. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon the Wellington Shire Council, its councillors, officers, staff and their families. We pray for your guidance in our decisions so that the true good of the Wellington Shire Council may result to the benefit of all residents and community groups. Amen. Amen. Any apologies, CEO?
None.
Any declarations of conflicts of interest? Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, I'll just have a declaration of conflict of interest and indirect interest, which is a conflict of duty.
Thanks, Councillor Bye.
And that is for
item number A8. 2.
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, moving on in regard to the confirmation of minutes of the previous council meeting. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the ordinary council meeting of 16th of April 2019.
Second of that motion, Councillor Ripper. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Councillor Rossetti. Is there any business arising from the previous meeting? Any late items, CEO?
None, Mayor.
And no notices of motion? Moving on to item A8, receiving of petitions or joint letters. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr Mayor. In relation to item A81, the petition for the Colville street light, this matter has been lying on the table since, I think, the 5th of March, and we were waiting for further information to come back from council officers. This information has now been received, and I just wanted to indicate to the council, Mr Mayor, that I'm proposing at the next meeting I will move to have this lifted from the table so it can be discussed. And this is basically so that we can actually allow any members of the community who have an interest in this petition to have due notice of what we're going to do, and that they'll be able to come along and ask questions from council if they so desire.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. I believe we don't need anything more formal in regard to that, other than that matter is now noted.
We don't, Mayor, but we'll just record that in the minutes.
Excellent. Okay, moving on to item A82, response to petition Lakeside Bowls Club. Councillor Bye, I believe that you need to...
Yes, I'll just do the declaration of conflict of interest and indirect interest conflict of duty. Thanks, Mayor.
So we just wait while Councillor Bye leaves the room. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move, please, that the Chief Executive Officer write to the head petitioner advising that the proposal to relocate machines from Lakeside Bowls Club to Sporting Legends Club is subject to legal process. A requirement applies for Sporting Legends Club to apply to the Victorian Commission for Gambling and Liquor Licensing, VCGLR, for a licence to operate additional machines at its venue, including a social and economic assessment. The third point is that Council's required role in the licence process to provide comment to the VCGLR on the social and economic assessment and whether the proposal for additional machines at Sporting Legends Club will result in net community detriment. Fourth point being, upon request from Sporting Legends Club and Lakeside Bowls Club for in-principle support to be provided prior to the application to VCGLR being prepared, Council officers have considered submissions from Sporting Legends Clubs as to its proposed ways to ensure no net community detriment, and the last point, taking into account commitments made by Sporting Legends Club, council officers will provide a letter indicating a favourable stance on the proposed subject to certain conditions being met regarding design of Sporting Legends Club Community Benefit Program and implementation of recommendations of an independent audit of both venues regarding responsible service of gaming measures.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Crossley, I put that motion. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you. I'm a little disappointed we don't have anyone, but maybe they're looking at home. I probably should declare right from the get-go that I had a grandfather who many years ago, I remember as a young fellow, my grandfather being intimately involved with the Berwick Bowling Club, and he would go down there on a daily basis as the president of that organisation to bowl and enjoy the social aspects of the bowling club. I remember when my grandmother passed away, my grandfather going to that daily and coming back happy. The bowling club is more than a sporting venue, it is a social venue. It provides outlets for people perhaps of an older age group who can, within a comfortable and safe space, enjoy the company of others. It is a very, very important venue. And we as a council continue to reiterate our support of the local bowling club. It is a wonderful venue and we wish them every success. Like the other bowling clubs within our particular region, I remember as mayor given a chance to bowl the first ball on the rink, bowl I think it's called, on the first rink for the new refurbed Mafra Bowling Club. I remember the Warwick Bowling Club ringing us just recently talking about their exciting expansion plans, and indeed the Veronica Maybury Bowling Club, or the bowling club at Golden Beach, I think in a couple of weekends' time celebrating the 10th anniversary of their clubhouse that's been built right next to it. That is also a strong and proud bowling club. And these are only 3 examples of bowling clubs within our particular Wellington Shire for which we as a council strongly support and congratulate the volunteers who get up and do their work. This local sale club is a proud club that has a large debt and they need our help. And we're here to tell them that we're here to help. So we are here to help them in overcoming this problem. And that is that we support, with the appropriate conditions being placed on this, that we absolutely support them in their quest to be able to rid themselves of a number of their machines in order to directly balance their debt. We have heard your calls for help as you've spoken on the local radio station. We've heard your calls for help as you've put stuff in the local paper. We've heard your calls for help as you've written to us and spoken to us on the telephone. We have heard that. However, I must stress that in fact dealing with this problem, a fundamental way of dealing with this problem is to recognise the problem, And that is that we are here to help, but we recognise what the problem is. Council takes extraordinarily seriously its response to gambling. It takes that very, very seriously. There are 318 machines within the Wellington Shire, which are spread over 7 venues. Let me make you understand this. In March of this year, and I've got the figures here right in front of me because I looked them up, in March of this year, $1,739,098 were lost on poker machines within the Wellington Shire. That is $1.7 million in 1 month. In January, which was the biggest and worst month to date, we had $1,808,134 was lost on poker machines within our region. That is for this year. Currently, we're about $16.1 million. Last year was a total of $21 million that were lost on poker machines and sent out of our region. $21 million. That is $58,000 per day, and whilst we're dealing with the averages, that is $615 every adult within the Wellington Shire. $615. This is a huge amount of money which is being lost on gambling within our region. A huge amount of money. It is, I think, part of the problem we have with empty shops in some regard, with businesses. This is discretionary spending which has been put into machines rather than spent in coffees and employment into our towns. And whilst there are some benefits within those gambling venues, I get that. I also think that we as a council need to be concerned about the $21 million which is leaving our community. We need to be absolutely concerned about that. And more importantly, as I've spoken to Gamblers Help within this region, there are 22 people that have this year so far been referred to financial counselling. 22 people that have had a need, are at critical point, and need to be referred for some sort of financial help to be able to get over the addiction to poker machines. 22 people already this year. So let's see what the problem is. Let's see what the problem is then. The problem is that this bowls club decided some years ago to go down a path of becoming a gambling venue, and that is one of the key reasons why they now have a $2 million debt and they're paying that back. And they need to fundamentally recognise that that is part of the problem. That part of that problem is that this is not a solution to their problem. That even getting rid of these small amount of machines, in my opinion, is not a solution to their overall financial problems, because it continues to make a great venue, a venue which should be a social place for some vulnerable people. It continues to confront them with the realities of gambling, which is that you lose money, that you get involved in, for some people, in financial problems, and that it does cause, in a lot of cases, or in some cases, some hardship. So we take very seriously the issues that we're mentioning here in terms of providing gamblers help services to people. And we'd like to think that whilst we are doing all we can to help the bowling club, that they hold to account the people that decided them to go down this route in the first place. That they ensure that they have a club which maintains rigorous standards of gamblers help. That they look after and support their membership, as I think they should devolve themselves from the menace of gambling. So absolutely, council strongly supports this application for them to shift the 1.5 kilometres down the road from one venue to another. But I ask them to have a good hard look at themselves and also perhaps rethink the idea of being a gambling venue in the first place. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCubbin. Councillor Crosley, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to draw attention to and certainly wholeheartedly support Councillor McCubbin on the points raised there, but also the fact that I too have great concern about the detrimental effects that gambling has on our community. But I support this motion in certainly, if we take it on the very last point, that this gives us the opportunity not only to look at and insisting that both Sporting Legends and the gambling component of the Bowls Club has a look and makes changes and adds programs that really assist in mitigating and reducing the potential detriment to the community. So it's given us the opportunity to not only just look at those transfer of those 6, but also the whole suite of the gambling machines in these venues. Really will have some further scrutiny to make sure that the odds aren't always in favour of the losses, that there are some benefits, and that those acknowledgements that there are losses to the community and there needs to be a substantial process that minimises the damage and actually has a responsible way of monitoring those gaming machines. So we do reduce those losses of 21 million away from our community. What fantastic facilities that sort of funds could provide. So this is really the key thing that drove me to support this, that we get some further control over the existing machines as well.
Thanks, Councillor Crosley. Just see if Councillor Bye can return.
I apologise. How easy we forget.
Not gone that long, but he's back. Item A9, do we have any invited addresses, presentations or acknowledgements, CEO? No. Questions on notice? No. Moving on, do we have any reports of delegates for this meeting? If not, We'll move on to item C2.1, Assembly of Councillors. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that Council note and receive the attached Assembly of Council records for the period 10th of April 2019 to the 1st of May 2019.
I have a seconder for that motion. Councillor Hole. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Councillor Bye. Okay. Moving on to item C2.2, Remuneration Committee minutes. Councillor Hole.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to move that Council note and receive the minutes from the Remuneration Committee meeting, excuse me, held on the 16th of April 2019 as attached, and 2, Council endorse the actions from the Remuneration Committee meeting held on the 16th of April 2019 as detailed in the attached minutes.
Second for that motion, Councillor Stevens. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Hole?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. The committee that looks after this particular account went through all the budget and the figures that are allowed, and we're very happy that in most instances we're well below what the amount is, so councils have been very frugal, and I thank you for that. The other point is, but from the previous meeting, the officers were asked to look at the effect of any councillor driving home, particularly in the coastal ward, happened to hit a kangaroo or a wombat or whatever else, and the effects on the insurance. Unfortunately, couldn't come up with a formula because everybody drives a different car, has different excesses, and so at this stage I'm afraid that your current insurance policies are going to have to protect you.
Well, that's no retrospectivity is needed, no retrospectivity required. So, yeah, there you go. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item C3.1, 2018 Planning Survey Results. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council note the results of the 2018 Statutory Planning Applicant and Objector Survey refer to Attachment 1.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Marr. Just by a very small margin, Councillor McCubbin. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Rossetti.
Thanks, Mayor. It's fair to say that most people agree that there should be rules, but no one particularly likes them when they apply to themselves. And in the case of planning, there are lots of rules. There are lots of rules for really good reason, because ultimately, if you go and buy a house and you know they have a proper building permit, a proper planning permit, it's going to be in the right location. Hopefully, it's being built properly to a proper standard. So these sort of elements are really important. But the fact is that most of the laws around planning are set by the state, not by us. For us as councillors, we're really keen to see a lot of development take place in an orderly way in our shire. And to me personally, it's always been about our staff and planning being much more about assisting people through the hoops rather than being gatekeepers. When I first got involved with council, there were people who were whinging in my ear about councils they dealt with, about how difficult it was to get planning issues through. So to see these survey results showing that we are not a council full of gatekeepers, in fact we're a council full of facilitators, is really pleasing. Because the fact is that the information being given to people is clearly primarily face-to-face. So the way that our staff deal with the people coming into our community or who are part of our community, building businesses, building their homes, subdividing their land, is really important. And the responsiveness of council officers, to note here, is over 90% have said it was good or excellent. The fact that all the staff, over 90%, are dealing with the applicants in a professional manner is really pleasing, because not everyone would say that council is good to deal with, but over 90% in those areas is really important. To actually be able to take people through the process, which is quite often a long process, in a way that keeps them engaged. For instance, 90% would say that they clearly understood the steps involved in the application for planning and how long it would take. They obviously knew through their contact with the staff how long it would take. And the overall experience in dealing with the planning department here, 85%, good or excellent. And I think this is something that we can actually be really proud of, to be able to guide people through those sorts of issues without being gatekeepers, being facilitators, I think is something to celebrate. So well done to all of the staff involved dealing with those planning applications. We can't do much about how the staff deal with clients. That's the CEO's domain. But certainly if they're not dealing with them well, we soon hear about it as councillors. So CEO, if you could pass on thanks to the planning department. That's a great survey. It's a good set of numbers. It's a great report. Thank you.
It's always nice to hear Councillor Rossetti quoting Paul Keating.
The shiver looking for a spine.
We could move on to item C 3.2, quarterly building permits. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I move that Council note the report of building permits issued from the 1st of October 2018 to the 31st of December 2018.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to point out a few things on this report. Back in July to September 18, there were 230 permits issued for works in the Wellington Shire. The estimated value was just over $24 million. That was excellent. Now let's just go forward 3 more months to this quarter. October, December 2008, there were 290 permits issued, but an estimated value of just under $51 million. Wow, you might go. We've gone from 24 million up to $51 million. What are we actually doing in the Shire? There's a few good stories. We've got the tennis club that is progressing with the multi-million-dollar upgrade. You might look through the report and go, what are we doing out at Toongabbie? $4.5 million in Toongabbie. It's the balance of the 3 sheds to the Toongabbie broiler farm. 3 sheds, $4.5 million. But each shed houses 50,000 chickens when they get dropped off as hatchlings to then grow out and leave 48 to 58 days later. They now have 8 sheds out there, and that is the completion of that facility. What a great thing for the Wellington Shire to have that here. There's a number of other broiler farms that have put permits in, and I think there'll be a lot more that will progress for the future. You also look at the other exciting thing there, which is out at Fulham, $14.4 million at Fulham. You might ask, what is that? That is the first stage in the multi-million-dollar development of the extension to the prison. It's $49 million development. It's a 102 prison bed facility expansion. What that means is there's going to be an activity hub, additional visitor area, an extension to the reception area. It will become 995 beds at the completion of this extension, which makes it the 3rd largest in Victoria. Is that good for the area? 2 things I'll look at. Not only will it create a lot of jobs going forward once it is completed, but the important thing in my eyes is what has it given us locally for people actually to construct it. People mightn't realise that we have some, just the top of my head, local companies when you drive past, you can see they're working there. You've got GBG doing the concrete works. You've got Laser Plumbing doing the plumbing works. You've got Jones Electrical doing the electrical works. How many jobs has that created locally for our construction companies? Which is very important. We don't want to see Melbourne companies come down and do the construction of our new buildings. To have these local companies, that's only name a few, involved in that construction phase is quite good for the area. So congratulations again to the planning department. Great result. They get these planning permits out very quickly, but you can see the growth for this last quarter has been excellent. Just under $51 million. Fantastic.
Thanks, Councillor White. You want to speak to Councillor Marr? No? Wow. Wow. Another great set of numbers. Item C 3.3, adoption of drought response proposal. Councillor Hole.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to move the Council endorse the Gippsland drought response proposal, looking ahead April 2019, which is at Appendix 1. 2, in conjunction with other agencies and stakeholders, Council commenced a joint advocacy program with East Gippsland Shire Council based on the Gippsland drought response proposal and the relevant Victorian and Australian Government ministers. And 3, Council acknowledged the work of the members of both the Wellington Shire Agricultural Industry Representative Group and the East Gippsland Drought Reference Group in the development of the proposal.
Thanks, Councillor Hull. Do I have a second for that motion? Councillor McCubbin. Motion opposed. If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Hull.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Well, I suppose the first word is that the drought, it continues to hit hard, and anywhere where we've got dry land, the ability of our farmers is coming out to the fore as to stay viable. One of the issues that are arising when you talk to them is that winter is coming, and the stock and fodder is pretty light on and very, very expensive to lay their hands on. The resilience of the communities are being bolstered by Wellington Shire, and particularly having the lunches and dinners and bringing the various farmers together to talk, so they know that they're not on their own. One of the issues that comes up is, where's the Premier? He has been invited and through a motion from this council, and I took the liberty as the MAV delegate for Gippsland to request the MAV President and CEO to verbally approach the Mayor to come down. I'm not expecting him to get in a hall and get belted, but come down and show that the government is ruling for all Victorians. Last week, or Anzac Day, I had the opportunity to attend the Flynn Resilience Luncheon, and they haven't given up hope. The farmers have adjusted their lifestyle, they've decreased their stocking, but the big problem is trying to keep the feed up. And so that brings us to today for the drought proposal response, is the looking ahead document. That's formally been put up here today for adoption. It deals with several issues. It's good reading. It's on the website and is freely available to anybody who wishes to sit down and read it, and you'll see where East Gippsland and Wellington Shires are going for the future. And that's going to be the challenge for all of us, because the financial pressure and costs are starting to bite. There's the fatigue from trying to manage the stock feeding, and with many of the rural sector now working on farm, they're trying to run two jobs. There's also the invasive native and pest animals, kangaroos and wombats are coming in and scrubbing up whatever is left, because they're also experiencing the drought. And of course we've got our rural sector that's in our commercial areas that are really feeling the pinch too, because of the lack of money that's coming into the communities. So the current proposals are, and they're in that document, is a transition programs for those who want to leave the farming world that they're currently in. There's a recovery program so that we can help manage those on the farms to maintain their lifestyle when the drought breaks. There's the adaptation, which will allow us to explore pathways for agriculture to consider for the future. But the major impact, of course, is pasture recovery, and when the rains come. And we know the rains are going to come. So when I spoke to those people down at Flynn, they were hoping that tomorrow was going to be the day, and they live in hope. However, they're going to need fertiliser, they're going to need grass, they're going to need lime, and the fact is that the funds in the bank probably getting pretty shallow, so that needs to be brought to the attention of both the state and federal governments, which is what we requested in that document. On top of that, the increase of stock numbers, it'll take, once the breeding starts again, it'll take at least 5 years to build their stock numbers up to what they were before the drought started. And the drought, for those, just to jog your memory, was officially only just over 2 years since it was official. It is now in its third year, Unfortunately, the drought is not considered in the same terminology as a flood or a fire. That it's not classified as a natural disaster. So it makes it very, very hard. But anyway, here in Wellington, we are working with our community to assist them in this extremely trying time. We have earmarked $1 million in our budget to aid and assist where we can, and we'll take the advice from our Agricultural Advisory Committee as to how we implement that. So in the meantime, no matter what sort of a dance you do, make it a rain dance.
Thanks, Councillor Hull. Can I just mention on Sunday, both Councillor Ripper and I were out at, if I get this right, Glenfalloch out near Lacola for a function with the farming community. No, I'm not going to sing Rachel's Coming Home, but just to say the community remains incredibly resilient and focused and you know, in these incredible times, and just simply encourage that we continue to look after each other. And a thank you to Councillor Hull, who in fact deputised for me while I had the cheek of having a little break, so thanks very much for that as well. Okay, moving on to item C 4.1, adoption of recreational boating facilities plan. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I would like to move that Council adopt the Recreational Boating Facilities Plan 2019.
So the second for that motion, Councillor Bye. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to indicate that this new plan replaces the former plan that was first adopted in 2014. It's interesting to note that in the time since the adoption of the plan, Council has spent over $3 million on boating facilities. And in relation to this plan, the Council met with the community at eight locations, I think, in January, to discuss the introduction of the plan. 41 submissions were received by the Council. The primary theme in the submissions was in relation to development of a safe harbour at Loch Sport, and that issue has now been incorporated into our proposed plan, given the fact, of course, that our plan relates to only facilities that the Council is responsible for. More on that point in just a moment, Mr Mayor. But it's also interesting to note that in relation to the Loch Sport safe harbour, the Council will have to deal with a number of other agencies, including Gippsland Ports, Drought, and the third one that I did have written down has completely escaped my memory for the moment. It'll come back, I hope. And the overall plan will now give us a guide for priorities for the next 2 to 3 years. And I would like to thank the people who made submissions in relation into this plan. One matter, just to finish, Mr Mayor, with your support, I'd just like to indicate that one issue that was raised, which isn't a matter that actually is Council's responsibility, was the future of the McLaughlin's Beach Boat Berthing Jetty, and there was a submission from the Ratepayers Association in relation to that. And I'd just like to indicate I'm going to have some discussions with the CEO about the possibility of a notice of motion at the next meeting on what we can do to advocate for that facility, because I'd like to stress it's not our responsibility, and we're not really need to put any money into that. But anyway, I think that it's interesting to see. Just one final point. I think all the state of all those facilities that we are responsible for, it's clear that they are all in a pretty good state of repair and maintenance, and I think thank you to Council officers for their work in relation to boating facilities. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. Moving on to item C 4.2, adoption of residential road and street construction plan. I understand it's Councillor Crossley.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council adopt the Residential Road and Street Construction Plan 2019, Attachment A.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Bye. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Councillor Crossley.
Thank you. This strategy is, again, a bit like the previous one, is replacing or a review of one that was created in 2014. Under the process of 2014 and with support of road recovery funds, the council was able to subsidise a number of urban streets that have been there in a gravel road state for quite a while, so it's really been a great improvement over that way. But there was also an indication that we needed to improve the structure and the enable funding of the process to fix up the various streets that are lagging behind on the standards that are around the Shire. After the review, a proposal of a fixed fee, which would make it easy for the community to decide whether they wanted to support the model, with actually understanding exactly how much they would be up for their contribution, and with a number of ways they could have that contribution either upfront or time payment through their rates and various other processes. So the decision was to put that out to community consultation through from December last year to February this year, and there were a number of community sessions around the Shire and a number of feedback that was taken into consideration, and which has led to this current document, which basically the fixed fee was to have a differential between the difference of the service that was and the amenity that was supplied. So it was a 6,000 fee for special charge scheme in the major urban and townships, and a 3,600 fee for schemes in small and coastal townships, which reflected the amenity provided by those various different provision of curb and channeling or culverts and so forth. Also, that's not only is it, I encourage people to put up their hand in their various areas to get the support to actually engage with the council to have their roads constructed and have a road scheme, but also that they will take into consideration and the priorities are we'll be looking at the cost of current maintenance, the strategic importance of those roads, and also the general community benefit. So there will be an extra component that if the council deems that it's to our advantage to have those roads maintained, things like street entry, town entries and so forth, that will also be taken into the consideration when we're looking at the division of the costs. So on that, it's ready and we're ready to accept it, so that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crossley. Moving on, item C 4.3, Myrtlebank Fulham Road / Myrtlebank Road sale alternate truck route. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the council formally recognises the Myrtlebank Fulham Road, Sale, Hayfield Road, Myrtlebank Roads connecting to the Princess Highway West and North in Sale, as outlined within the accompanying report as the sale alternate truck route. And 2, in recognising the sale alternate truck route, council does not support the formalising of this route as a bypass of sale for purposes other than an alternative truck route. 3, the Mayor write to the Honourable Yarl of Pulford, Minister for Roads and Road Safety, A, informing the Government of Council's position as contained in points 1 and 2 above. B, seeking the Government formalise this route as part of the Victorian Freight Plan. C, seeking the Government support through agencies like Regional Roads Victoria that appropriate signage, including destination and tourism signage, be placed on the Princess Highway, encouraging vehicles other than trucks to continue on the Princess Highway through to Sale. D, seeking the Government's commitment to upgrading and assuming ongoing control and ownership of all road infrastructure that comprises the sale alternate truck route once it is formally recognised in the Victorian Freight Plan. 4, council send a copy of the letter to the Minister as outlined in point 3 above to all state and federal members of Parliament who represent Gippsland, Gippsland Local Government Network, the Latrobe Valley Authority and Committee for Gippsland, seeking their formal support in this matter.
Thanks, Councillor McCubbin. Seconder for that motion, Councillor Stevens. Is that motion opposed?
I'd like to move an amendment.
Okay.
I'd like to move an amendment, Mayor. I'm sorry to bring this up late notice and may not be supported. But in the first, if we scroll back, just in point 2, to change the word not to not at this stage, given that we've been pretty clear with the public about an alternate truck route. We haven't actually asked them their view on a bypass route full stop, so that at this stage we're making a position that we haven't really tested out with the community. If we change that wording to does not at this stage, it still gives us the option to have a conversation with the community at another time if we chose. I'm happy for the mover and the second to accept that change, or I'll move it through as an amendment which may or may not be useful. At this time, whatever the mover and second.
Look, I'm happy I'm happy to accept that as an amendment.
So at this time.
As a
So not as amendment.
not amendment, sorry, accept it as a
Change the motion.
So this will be not at this stage, is that at this time?
I like the capital not, to be honest. Am I allowed to have the capital not?
Yes.
Can I have the capital not, please? Accept the capital not.
Not at this.
Does not support at this stage. Can we have the support first? No? Yeah, you've got support already.
Yes, the stage up support.
It's a matter of semantics, I'm happy to.
Not support.
Then take the
that's
second-
better.
Take this next.
The teacher.
Yeah. Sorry, that was me. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that's acceptable to you, Councillor
I'll
McCubbin.
accept that.
The second is happy with that.
Do we have a second now? We haven't got a second yet. It's Are you happy with that, Councillor Stevens? Given that circumstance, is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you, and thank you to Councillor Rossetti for raising that as well. I have a pretty good range with my voice. I have been told, and I know that's a bit annoying, but my range is not such that it defeats Google Maps or any of the other GPS devices that people have. No matter what we in Council do today, no matter what I say today, people's GPS devices and their Google Maps are going to be directing people as they go from Traralgon to Bairnsdale along the quickest and most effective route. Let's understand that. Let's understand the brutal reality of the modern day devices that are taking people along that road whether we like it or not, okay? And really what Council is doing within this motion is recognising that reality and saying, well, look, we need to advocate for our community so that we get the best possible outcome we possibly can. We need to develop this alternative route as a way to remove trucks that are not going to stop in our town. They remove those trucks from the town to make sales safer, to make it more livable, and to make it a better spot for people to live in. So I think it's really important that we do have a place that can be an alternative truck route. I think it's really important that we be fair income about that truck route and ensure that it is all weather, that it has proper flooding controls, and that it is made with the standards that are required by proper trucks. So therefore, we need to seek funding from those various authorities to ensure that that alternative truck route is maintained at a proper level. Right now, it is the council which are trying to fill in the gaps along this alternative route, which is being used by Google Maps, and understanding that these huge trucks are going along that particular route. And that is unsafe. So we need to be doing all we can and pushing as much as we possibly can to get that route taken over by the appropriate authorities and to be maintained at a proper level of support. So that's really important. Councillor Rossetti has reminded me, and I think it's an important amendment or a point that he made, is that this is time for us also to have a communication with our communities about this route. We do not support at this stage this being called a bypass. We do not at this stage encourage people to bypass our town. In fact, quite the opposite. We want to ensure that there's signage and all sorts of things that encourage people to make Sale a great stop on your way between here and somewhere else. What a wonderful place it is to have a cup of coffee, enjoy your family, this wonderful surroundings, come and see the museum, come and see the art gallery, enjoy a show at the entertainment, so maybe stay 2 or 3 days. You may have not intended that, but I'm sure as you are sucked into the enjoyment of this beautiful town, you will want to do that. So we do not in any way, shape or form want to say that this should be bypassed. In fact, quite the opposite. I think we need to be pushing, as we've said here, that that people should be able to stop and have a cup of coffee here. However, Councillor Rossetti has pointed out, and I absolutely agree with him, that it's time to have a conversation with our communities about how we can best make this a livable town. If a car is not going to stop here, or if a truck is not going to stop here, it is reasonable that we have an alternative route for trucks. That is absolute. So let's see if we can find ways to improve the livability of our town. Let's also find ways of communicating to a driver that this is a great place to stop. I absolutely agree with Councillor Rossetti on that point. So what we are looking for here is a point of advocacy. So in other words, that we can stand up to our various members of Parliament to say to them that this is where people are going, they're using their Google Maps, their GPSs, they're going along that route, and we need to properly fund that route so that trucks can take it safely. And I thank councillors for supporting this motion.
Thanks, Councillor McCullough. Item C5.1, Urban Paths Plan 2018. Councillor Marr.
I move that Council adopt the Urban Paths Plan at Attachment A.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Bai. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Marr.
I've just been notified that there are a couple of errors within the document that will be corrected. With regard to minor errors in street names such as spelling and minor inconsistencies between the maps showing pathways and the accompanying tables listing pathways. This plan builds upon the walking and cycling plan of 2012-2016. It focuses on linking destinations within residential areas and focuses on 4 areas: whole of path networking plan, connectivity of paths, safety and accessibility, education and promotion. What we're wanting to do is certainly ensure that there are active routes with diversity for our users within the Shire and those that come to visit this great place. What it does not include are the connectivity between towns or non-residential areas to towns. Footpath planning in these locations is not considered within this document. Council will, however, consider additional non-urban footpaths under the rural and recreational paths framework that is being developed as part of the Urban Plans Action Plan, connectivity of path outcomes, and it will certainly be looked at annually as part of our council planning process. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Marr. It's appropriate perhaps to note thanks to our staff who were involved, particularly in the engagement process throughout the community, and to the extent that our community were engaged in that process, I think is a clear reflection of the community that we have here, which is just great to acknowledge. So thanks to all of those people. Moving on to item C5.2, Briagolong Quarry Reserve Committee of Management minutes. Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council receive the minutes from the Briagolong Quarry Reserve Committee of Management General Meeting held on the 24th of February 2019.
To have a seconder for that motion? Yeah. Councillor Marr was just that bit quicker, Councillor Hull. Is that motion opposed? Yeah. If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Ripper? No, okay. Moving on to item C5.3, Briagolong Recreation Reserve Committee of Management minutes. And I think we're in your hands again, Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council receive the minutes from the Briagolong Recreation Reserve Committee of Management's General Meeting held on the 8th of April 2019.
I think that was seconded by Councillor Hull. That motion is unopposed. The motion is carried. Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. For those people who are driving out towards Briagolong, you'll notice some work has commenced. The contractors are, as we speak, out there refurbishing, pulling down, putting up a new pavilion, which is very exciting. And thank you to all the committee out there who've worked very hard to get to this stage, and we look forward to completion in due course.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. Moving on to item C5.4, Cameron Sporting Complex Committee of Management minutes. Councillor Hull.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to move the Council receive the minutes from the Cameron Sporting Complex Committee of Management's General Meeting held on the 21st of February 2019, including the financial statements.
Do you have a second for that motion? Councillor Bye. That motion is not opposed. The motion is carried. Councillor Hull.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, still a very exciting committee that works well together. Financially, got the head above water, which is at this time of the year that normally the balance in the budget takes a little bit of juggling to be able to meet the 30th of June. So they've done very well this year. And of course the excitement is the proposal for the redevelopment of the complex. And now that all the documents have been signed by the committee, we're looking forward to tenders now being called and seeing this magnificent structure reappear on behalf of the committee, which is Section 86 Committee.
Thanks, Councillor Hull. And any items of urgent business, CEO?
None, Mayor.
Any further chat room comments? No, we've got gallery to do. Sorry. Okay, just to see if we have anyone in the gallery who wishes to make comment. If there's no one who wishes to make comment, I won't go through the whole introduction to the comments section as it's unnecessary. So in those circumstances, we might move on to item G. Councillor Stevens, in your hands.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would just like to move that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to Section 89, subsection 2 of the Local Government Act 1980.